Zuraida Jardine in the house. Wow. You're like the voice of my generation, and I'm super happy to have you on Timeless Talks. Thank you for joining me today.
Yay, thank you. I love hearing that. I love hearing that. When I was in broadcasting, a large part of my, well, I wouldn't say a large part of my career, but the beginnings of my career was like graveyard shifts. So doing those really late night radio shows or early morning radio shows. And that's really where you cultivate loyal listeners, because you're either dealing with students that are studying that time of the evening or early hours of the morning, or service workers that are getting up early hours of the morning. And I've often heard how my voice is reminiscent of a time for them, and that's always beautiful. So thank you. I'm happy to hear that.
I must say, the moment your voice pops on to my Instagram, it's like I'm being transported back into time. And it's such a happy space. And it makes me so happy when
I
I hear
love
your
that.
voice pop on.
Thank you.
So, you've got quite an impressive CV. And wow, looking at the last 8 years of your life, what you've achieved and what you've done is incredible. Wow. So, you've spoken quite a bit about breaking generational cycles, and I feel like it's something that I'm constantly working on and constantly trying to do myself. But I feel like I feel like I'm always hitting a wall, but I guess baby steps. So tell me, what did that look like for you emotionally? And what was the hardest belief you had to unlearn?
Hmm. Lovely question. Um, First of all, I don't think we grow up naturally thinking of our ancestors or any generational narrative that we've grown up with. Like for me personally, I have to say that it hit hardest when I became a parent and I started re-evaluating, because I'd always had this dream. I knew that I always wanted to be a mother and a parent, but it really hit hard when I gave birth to my daughter and then had to make a conscious decision about how I was going to parent. And what's incredible about becoming a caregiver or a parent is that you start then thinking about your journey and where you came from and what was it like in your upbringing and your childhood. And I knew that there were a lot of things that were right, um, that made me feel secure. But there were also many things that were wrong that made me feel insecure. And a lot of these things sit in our gene cells. They're so close to us, we don't even realize it unless we develop an acute state of awareness. And so having giving birth to my daughter made me want to stop and reflect on the kind of parent that I wanted to be going forward. And so that's just really where it started. And it still has and will continue to be a journey of unlearning behaviors that I grew up with, that in many ways feel home to me and feel normal, that I'm trying to unlearn and then relearn behaviors that are more holistic and beneficial for my children. But yeah, to
Mm.
answer your
I
question, it came from having kids.
Exactly the same for me. I must say, I agree with you there. The moment I became a mom, it's like this anxiety wave that just came crashing over me, going like, what am I gonna do? What can I do better? How can I like I just want to give and be the best mom and parent to my kids.
Yeah.
But I have noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed it as well, but a lot of the younger generations that have not become parents yet are already on that breaking the generational cycle train.
Mm.
And that's an incredible thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the really wonderful thing about the day and age that we live in is that we live in the knowledge economy. There's so much awareness around everything, and what's so different compared to when I grew up and my parents grew up and my grandparents grew up is that we're talking about uncomfortable topics. In fact, the so-called uncomfortable topics are not uncomfortable for the younger millennials or the Gen Zs, which is it's so wonderful. I mean, my daughter speaks openly about, her mental health state all the time. And to her, it's like speaking
Wow.
about her physical fitness. It's so normalized, which is beautiful. And, to go back to how things changed for you when you became a parent is that we are so much aware of this thing called consciousness and presence and awareness and what it means to really be a parent, or a colleague or a partner, and be present in that relationship. And when you have a child, like I think about my grandmother, my dad's mother had 12 children. um, I mean, I don't know how
Wow.
conscious you can be with having 12 kids all at the same time. But when you have a child, it comes with, it's great power. But I think it was a Superman that said, with great power comes great
It's
responsibility.
great
And so
responsibility.
we can't have kids unconsciously anymore. If you want to be a
No,
parent, you've got to ask yourself, am I ready to be a parent? To have kids unconsciously today is just so massively unfair. And so for me, I knew that I wanted to make it as right as possible. I think my kids are going to land up in therapy anyway, and that's all good and it's all normal because you can't get it right all the time. But I just wanted to be as conscious as possible, like you.
it's yes, but it's funny that you say your kids are going to end up in therapy. I will feel like a massive success as a mom if my kids do end up in
Yes.
therapy.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not even about, I guess, saying the words end up in therapy is so wrong, because, and that's why I apply
Yes,
mental fitness to the mental health and well-being state, because they should be in therapy all the time, just like we go to school and we do PE, we do physical education, we do extracurricular activities where we are playing netball or basketball or hockey, or swimming. We need to be making sure that our mental health is is sustained as often as possible, as much as possible. And for us to get to that place, we must develop a state of mental fitness. And so, my kids wonderfully go to a school that both their schools offer therapy, and they both go in and out of therapy, which they find so valuable. So it's not about ending up in therapy; it's about using a therapeutic model for your entire life. Like, you should always be in therapy because you should always be in maintenance of yourself. We shouldn't only be going to therapy when things are going wrong in our life, because we don't go to the gym when things go wrong in our life. We don't wait for a heart attack or a stroke before we start working out. We do that because we're proactive about it. And that's the same with whether it be life coaching or, different types. There are so many different types of therapies that exist. Like, be in a state of therapy your entire life. Why? Because it's healthy. Like, the whole notion of the stigma of mental health, and therapy is something that is dissolving radically, which I'm really happy about, because I come from a generation and I come from a community and background where going to therapy meant that there was something wrong with you. But right now,
yes,
going to therapy means that there's something right with you.
I know. And that's such an incredible, like, beautiful shift in everything happening in the world. And I a lot of times say that, look, I love my mom and dad, and they tried their best and they did their best. I know that. But I really do wish that they sent me to therapy, especially after
Yeah.
going through a divorce or them going through a divorce. And yes, I mean, I went through some scary stuff in my childhood, and I just really wish they stood up and said, no, listen here, it's time to go speak to someone. I just feel like, and I know they did send me, but I know I remember going once and I was like, this is not for me. But what do I know as a 9 year
Mm.
old?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You almost need the parent to parent. Um, it's the older I get, and navigating teenagers at the moment, the more compassion I have for my own parents, because I really do believe they were doing the best they could with what they knew, with what they could afford to understand. Um, I think parenting is tough, and I think I think we also sometimes forget that children are little, but they're fully fledged human beings. And I think sometimes we take for granted that they won't remember. Um, but we do remember. We all remember. There comes a point in time when you start reflecting on your childhood and you start remembering things. And I think sometimes we think our kids won't remember, but they do remember. And I think that's an important aspect to acknowledge. And we acknowledge that by treating them like fully fledged human beings, by having discussions and communicating openly and asking them, how do you feel? My kids, without a doubt, have been my greatest teachers. Without a doubt. I learn lessons daily from my son and daughter, daily. And yet, when I grew up in a time where, children were seen, not heard. And so you couldn't
Yes,
cross question, you couldn't debate anything. You had to be a child. A child had a place. And today it's different. Today children have a voice, and I love that they have a voice. I love that they are, you know, being treated as holistic human beings that are full from the beginning
mm,
of time, not only when they, 35 and have their own kids.
yes. No, I know. I must say with my kids, and that's one thing that I'm trying very hard to work on is that whole. And my kids, both my kids, trust me, do they have voices, and they voice it on a daily. And then at this one part of me want to be like, excuse me, you're a child. Exactly that old mentality of you should be seen, not heard. And then on the other hand, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I want this from my kids. I want my kids to speak up and have their own little voices because even though they're small, like you said, they've got valid points and that they just want to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it. To be heard is what we all desire as human beings. We want to be heard and we want to be seen. And it doesn't mean that you let go of the reins of parenting, or you don't implement boundaries. I think boundaries are important. Like you said earlier on, if you told your parents that you didn't want to go to therapy, but you wish they'd let you continue. Um,
Yes,
Now in retrospect, you're able to look at that and go, that's what I wanted from my parents. So sometimes you got to go, what is the right thing to do as a parent, not as my child's friend, but as a parent. And boundaries are
yes,
healthy. They really are healthy, as long as they're conscious.
that's very true. So tell me, how did becoming a mother influence your decision to pursue higher education um, and mental wellness? Like I mentioned to you, I wish I was pushed more as a child, and I I didn't go to university after school. And looking back now, I would have loved to at least experience that. Um, and I don't know if it's the whole guilt of, oh, we divorced, we gave our kids a broken home, where my parents almost feel like they couldn't um, push us. Um, but I do wish they did push me more for a lot of things.
Yeah. Do you ever speak to them about it? Are they still around?
No, my father unfortunately is not here anymore. Uh, and my mother and I have a very rocky relationship. So, no,
Okay.
unfortunately not. No.
Okay.
I probably have
Yeah,
tried,
sometimes,
but I
and it
don't think
hasn't
I'll
been
try
successful.
again. No.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes there's a quote that goes something like, sometimes you've got to accept the apology that you never get.
Oh,
And that's a
wow.
tough one, isn't it?
Oof. That,
Yeah.
that,
Pretty profound, isn't it? You've
that,
got to accept the apology that you never get. And it's a hard thing because it's meant to it's meant to represent closure, but yet it doesn't feel like closure, particularly,
mm,
if a caregiver is still alive. Um, I find that, just speaking from my own experience, it almost makes, um, makes it easier to accept when someone has passed on, as opposed to them still being around and you have a fractured relationship with them. Um,
Yes,
but I guess that's when you go within and you focus on what's important for you, and you know that what's important for you is the parenting and the home that you want to afford your kids right now. That doesn't mean that you don't in some ways suffer, because your little self is inside of you. Even when you're 80 years old someday, the little girl is still there, and she craves all the things that she craved when she was younger. But it's almost like a continuous journey of making peace, so that you don't stay in that state and it doesn't make you spiral into a low mood for an extended period of time. But it's hard
yeah,
not to get that apology. It's hard.
it is hard. But like I also said, they were just trying their best, I guess. So, um, but yes. So,
Yeah,
how did becoming
to
a mother
answer your
influence your
question,
decision?
yeah.
Yes.
So I have always had an affinity for human behavior, and I've always
Mhm.
um, loved connecting with people. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise that I was in broadcasting. So I didn't grow up um, being a communicator, or rather, let me say this: I grew up trying to communicate, and my communication was always suppressed because I didn't come from a home where we spoke about things. So I,
Yeah.
inside of me, always wanted to talk, and I didn't have the space to talk. So when I think about the fact that I actually went into broadcasting, it's kind of like not surprising, so that I could speak to millions of people. But I'd always been drawn to and connected with people and stories. And so the part of human behavior, observing human behavior, being interested and curious about human behavior has always been there with me ever since I can remember myself. And I think it was when I had my daughter and we had just come back from America. She was born in the States. Um, I wanted something different. I didn't want to be in broadcasting anymore. As much as I love television and
Mhm.
radio, I wanted something more for myself. And psychology just seemed like the right fit for where I was at in my life at the time. And so I signed up to university, to Wits University in Johannesburg, and I became a full time student. And I didn't have a tertiary degree before then. So I literally did everything from scratch daily. So I was 40 years old, and all my peers in class were between 18 and 19. So it was definitely a trip. Um, and yeah, I did my undergrad for 3 years, and then I did my honors, and um, and then along the way, I discovered functional medicine, which is a modality that I absolutely appreciate, which is finding out the root cause of why we have disease. So not only looking at the symptoms, but looking at why things keep flaring up in our lives, and so going back right to the beginning. And functional medicine, led me to positive psychology, which is another modality which I absolutely love, which is more about finding out what's right with you, with other people, and the world, as opposed to focusing on what's wrong. Um, and through that, I discovered breath work. And that took me down a rabbit hole, and I did my yoga teacher training, and then did my foundational breathwork training, and then I did my master's in critical diversity studies. And all through this time, I really the thing that excites me most about human beings is our brain. Like, I'm fascinated by this 1.5 kilogram engine between our two ears, and its awe-inspiring capability to either run on autopilot or for us to master our minds. And so it's just been the most wonderful journey of tapping into why we behave the way we do. And along the way, I've become so passionate about the idea that we don't have to live the way we do, that we can change the way we behave, and we can change our personalities by changing the way we think. And we change the way we think by making our thoughts conscious and making it actionable and making it intentional. We have between 70 and 80,000 thoughts every single day. And around 90% of those thoughts are constantly on autopilot. So we think the same thoughts every single day. And if we don't interrupt those thoughts, we're going to be living in the past all the time. So it's so vital that if we are having negative, dysfunctional thoughts, that we change those thoughts so that we can have a different experience and have different behaviors and then have a different mood, have a different experience of what life can be. And that all happens with changing the way you think, changing your belief system. There was a time when we thought that, that the brain was fixed, that what we had was a fixed mindset. And now we know that that's not the case, that we know that we have a growth mindset and that our brains are plastic and that we can change neural pathways that were cemented in the beginning. We can change that by the choices we make, by the actions we take.
Tell me, you've reinvented yourself from media personality to a mental wellness guide. As a mom and entrepreneur, how do you balance ambition with presence? Because me personally, I struggle juggling those balls.
Yeah. First of all, let's get this straight. If anyone tells you that they have a balanced life, show me who they are. And I want to know if that is the real, 100% real truth. Because I don't think that exists. I think that there are times when we are in a semblance of a state of balance. But I think that when you are navigating so many roles, it's hard to be in balance. The one thing you can do is tap into awareness and realize that something in your life at that moment is out of balance. So, when I think about the pillars of health, I think of sleep, I think of relaxation, I think of my spiritual relationship to myself. I think of my connections to my family and my friends. I think of my nutrition, my movement. And to have all of those pillars in place 100% of the time, I really do think is virtually impossible. I think that maybe you'll have 2 in place and 3 will be falling by the wayside, or you'll have 3 in place. And so it's a constant juggle. I think the peace comes in knowing that balance is elusive. It really is elusive, and to offer yourself grace when you are not able to juggle all those balls, because it's perfectly okay. We're living in a time where human beings have never been as stimulated as they are right now. And if you consider that, and you consider the fact that our anxiety levels are at an all-time high, what are we expecting? And so when you hear of balance, which I can only assume we're hearing of, on social media, you've got to recognize that you've seen someone's highlight reel and you've seen a fraction of what someone wants you to see about their lives. So it's important to put all of this into place and to realize that there is no such thing as balance. There's a journey towards that. But it's almost like perfection. The closer you get to perfection, the further away it moves. It's kind of the same with balance. If you are a curious human being, and I talk about, myself, judging myself, there's always something that I want to do that's more. Like for the last, I would say 15 years, have loved learning. There has never been a time when I haven't been doing a course or a degree or certification. Like, I love learning. And I keep saying to my husband, this year, I'm not doing another course. I'm promising myself I'm not doing another course. And then just as my nervous system starts to relax and regulate, there's that thing inside of me that starts bubbling up that wants to learn more. And what do? I take on another course, and then I go, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I'm all over the place. But who's doing that to me? I'm doing that to me. So I've got to take responsibility for that. It's what I enjoy. I'm here once, and I want to milk the nectar out of life. And so I make peace with that. Sometimes I will enjoy your beautiful space and be able to go to Mauritius and have an incredible time. And sometimes I'm going to be in a season of performing and activating, and that's okay. I always come back to awareness, and whether that awareness is Zuraida, you need to slow down, or Zuraida, you've been hibernating for too long. You need to get out of that mood and pick it up. It's just about having that awareness. And so I make peace with that. But to answer your question, no, there's no such thing as balance.
Makes me feel a little bit better because I don't know if I should just stop listening to podcasts altogether because every single health expert that you listen to on a podcast, the first thing they say, oh, what's good for your health and everything, mental wellness is sleep. Get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And I think to myself, have you
Yeah.
ever had kids? Because where in
Yeah.
the world am I supposed to find a solid 7 to 9 hours of sleep? And now we've
Yeah.
just adopted a puppy. And this is the first dog I've owned in my life, believe it or not. I did not know it's this much hard work. It's worse than having a newborn.
Yeah.
I don't have sleep. I
It's
think
like
I've
a
slept
baby.
in
Yes.
total. It's 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 worse, I tell people, because a baby you can like it just lies there. But a puppy,
You
it's
can
like
pacify it. Yeah.
yes, our puppy just goes everywhere. It's like nighttime is her like, okay, let's party time. I'm like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, Lucky. Time to relax. But it's true. I feel like the more I try and balance my life over all those pillars of health, the more freaked out and the more anxiety I get and the more stressed I
Yeah.
become. And
I agree.
it's not nice.
And, I want to say this uh, uh, and I assume that you love podcasts as a podcaster yourself.
Yes.
I don't have a day that goes by where I'm not listening to a podcast. I absolutely love a delicious podcast. I love the world of podcasting. I love that I can choose time like a walk on the promenade and get educated whilst I'm walking. However, I think it is so vital and important that once again we have this realization and awareness when we are listening to anyone that is giving us advice about something, whether it is finances or health or relationships or whatever it may be, the person that is being interviewed has almost reached the pinnacle of their career, of their expertise, and that's why they are being interviewed on what they're sharing. Who really interviews people in the midst of their, am I allowed to swear, shit show? You know, who interviews people in the midst of how crazy it is when you are hustling for money, when you are going through heartbreak, not when you've overcome the heartbreak and you can talk about what you went through, but when you're in it, when you're in the eye of the storm. We don't hear those podcasts enough. We don't hear about the people that are struggling. We hear about them after they've overcome adversity and then are now sharing their nuggets of wisdom. And that's all beautiful. I love that. I appreciate that. But we've got to be aware once again, the advice that we're getting is really from people that have been through it. And so as inspiring as that information is and as that story is, just know and be realistic about where you are right now, because it becomes so easy to compare and to judge yourself. And we all know that comparison is the thief of joy. The moment you start comparing someone else's success of their podcast or their finances or the health of their relationship or the health of their career to our own, when we are in different phases and seasons of our lives, that's when you need to be careful, because that can make you feel insignificant. It can make you feel behind. It can make you feel not worthy. It can, bring on low self-esteem. So having this awareness when you listen to people that are experts, know that they were not always there. And you're hearing from them now because now they're the expert.
It's true, and it's all about just that shift in mindset, I guess. Instead of going like, oh my God, they've got all their ducks in a row and they've got their shit together, just going, they've been
Yeah.
through the worst, like you said. But that sounds like a
Yeah.
gap in the market. I would love to listen to a podcast with people on
Right.
sharing their life and all the shit that they're
Right.
going through
I
in the
agree.
moment.
I agree. I agree. And I think that would be, it's that's real life stories. Not to say that the success stories are not real life stories, but it's so hard to go me too, me too, me too, when you are comparing your life to someone else's highlight. It's very hard to go me too. And I think that's why if you look at social media and you look at creators that are just 100% authentic, they're doing so well, particularly on platforms like TikTok, because I think the world is craving that. The world is craving messiness. The world is craving to hear that people are real, that they err, that they don't always get it right, that they're floundering, that they're struggling. The world needs more of that. They need more real stories. And so people, the creators that are putting that kind of content out, they've been celebrated.
Gives me a little bit of hope that we're hopefully moving out of this phase of my life is perfect and everything is sunshine and roses, and I've fought, I don't know, blooms, I
Yeah.
don't know, but
Yeah.
it's
That's
it's very
unreal.
refreshing
It's unreal.
because
I love to compare real life to nature. And if you think about nature, there's 4 seasons. There's spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And the environment is going through such vastly different times during those different seasons. And that happens to human beings too. Sometimes we are in a winter and we're hibernating. Sometimes we are in a spring and we're planting some ideas. And sometimes we're in a summer and there's sunshine. And sometimes we are in an autumn and we're falling and we're floundering. To know that your life is real is so important, and to be wary of who and what you're comparing yourself to is vital for your mental health.
no, that's very true. And yes, like I mentioned to you, with us moving to Mauritius, we've been here for 2.5 years now, and even though career-wise, I can say the classes that I'm teaching wise, I'm thriving. Um, but personally, I think I'm very, very low because it's just obviously moving to a different country. You will know, moving to the US for a while, it's a big, it's a big adaptation that
Shift.
you have to make, shift. And now on top of that, there's a different language I'm throwing into the mix, and French is not an easy language to learn. Let me tell you that. I've been trying.
So sexy.
Oui, je sais, mais that's I am like, I know it's very sexy, but I can tell you now I don't sound sexy when I speak
Do your
because
kids speak?
no, my kids are starting on. It's super cute. They understand all 4 of the languages, so they understand Creole, French, English, and Afrikaans. They mainly speak in English because at home Cedric and I obviously speak English to each other. But now at school they are doing French, and I can see it's very cute, but it's hilarious because when I try and get them to speak Afrikaans to me, they struggle like crazy, but the accent is thick. And I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be super interesting when we go visit our South African family every time. But yes, they are picking up the language, which is very exciting for them, and I'm very, very happy for them to be exposed to all of this beautiful
Yeah.
diversity and cultures and languages.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's very exciting. So tell me, looking ahead, what would you like to see more leaders? Because especially after COVID, a lot of people obviously moved into the self-employment, small business owners. What do you want to see more leaders embracing in terms of wellness and self-care? Because I think after COVID, also we basically just try to keep our head above water. That's why I think a lot of us threw ourselves into starting our
Yeah.
own business. And what role do you envision yourself playing in that evolution?
I think there's no doubt that COVID, as awful as that time was, particularly for people that lost a lot,
Mm,
both materialistically and human lives, it also showed us a different way of how we can potentially live. Like if you look at this, for example, if you look at how the landscape has changed in terms of people not having to go into work daily, but having hybrid situations where they can work. And I think that's been so important for women in particular, that have families, to not have to go into work 5 days a week. I think that's been wonderful. And then, simply in terms of the landscape of broadcasting, people still come up to me and say, how do I get into TV, or how do I get into radio? And I often say to them, this year is your radio station. This is your podcast. This is your TV station. There's so much you can do on this one device. And so use it to your advantage. I think what we've seen now more than ever is just so many creators that are literally creating the most incredible content from their bedrooms. What the Gen Zs are doing blows my mind, and their confidence levels to just do it, to not overthink it, but to just do it, has been wonderful to watch, particularly as someone that has gone through these different generations of time and the different landscape of the times that we have been in, and I've been in over the last 50 years. What role would I like to see more happen? First of all, is to acknowledge that IQ is now without a doubt outsourced to AI. And so it really isn't about how many degrees you have anymore, or how smart you are. It really is about how emotionally connected can you be to yourself and to others. And I would love to see leadership, particularly in corporate and in governments, start shifting from being a dictatorship to being more partnerships. I'd love to see more compassion come into the workplace. I'd love to see more recognition of the fully fledged holistic human being, and to recognize that when someone comes to work, they don't just switch off their home life, but they come with everything that they've left at home. So if you are a parent and you've had a sleepless night because your kid has been up all night, or you've had a sleepless night because you're having a tough time with your partner, you don't leave that at the door when you come to the workplace. You bring that in with you. And so it really just is about trying to understand and recognize that there are nuances to being human. And the notion of soft leadership, which to me means just being a leader that is empathic, that really genuinely cares about the people that you work with, is so vital to the fabric of who we are going to be as human beings in time to come, number one. So that's what I'd love to see more of in the workplace. Number two, my personal passion is to normalize mental fitness, to be able to bring it into schools, for children to become aware of how their breath impacts their nervous system, how they can use their breath to guide them when they're going through a tough time, whether it be on the playground, if they're navigating bullying, or if they're having to write a paper that they, are not really skilled at, because they feed through everything. When you've got to do something that you are not good at, or you've got to confront something that you are afraid of, your body's going to go into a sympathetic state of being. So your nervous system and your breath is going to start rising and becoming short. And so to learn how to slow down your breath, how to respond to whether it is that exam that you're writing, or that bully on the playground, by taking a breath and not reacting to the situation. All these little things are going to play such a pivotal role in the state of our mental health, because your mental health is something that's ever shifting. So today my mental health may be, 7 out of 10, and tomorrow it may be 2 out of 10. And that's okay. It's always doing this, and that's fine. But my mental fitness, which is the tools that I'm working on daily, is what we need to pay more attention to. So what's the condition of our breath? What is our nervous system telling us? What is our intuition and gut saying at the moment? how do we go and mentally rehearse the things that we want to do in life? So visualization plays such a huge part in a lot of your goals being achieved. And we're seeing, a lot of the secrets that sportsmen have been using since the beginning of time to achieve mastery in their sport is now, coming to human beings like you and I. How can we use visualization to achieve the goals that we want to achieve? So how do we get to that place where we start focusing on not so much even the goals that we want to achieve, but the rituals that we want to implement in our lives that eventually get us to the goals that we want to achieve? So how do we become more disciplined? How do we become more focused? That all boils down to mental fitness. So to start practicing and normalizing mental fitness as we do physical fitness is really what I would love to see happen on a larger scale, from primary school right up until, corporate, to introduce that at a very foundational level, going all the way to the top. And I have so much faith in humanity. By nature, I'm an optimist. I think that we are, as a globe, overwhelmed right now, but I just think that there is so much potential in what we can do and where we can go if we can just connect to ourselves and then choose to connect to others. And so if there was ever a time that EQ is going to reign supreme, it is now. And as someone that has been born an empath, highly compassionate, very sensitive, I'm excited about the time that we're living in. I think that human beings are innately good people. And I'd love to see more of that ownership coming about.
The post, like 5 posts ago, I think you said you did that reel about IQ's the new AI and EQ is the future. And I actually forwarded
Yeah.
that to my husband because I like to mock him that he's the sensitive one in our relationship. But I know what a good thing it is because
Yeah.
we balance. If we've got balance to a T, me and him, and that's because we are complete opposites and we complement each other so very well. So I sent him that reel
Yeah.
because I was like,
Yeah.
look, me mocking you, it's a good thing because look, you are the future with your emotional
Yeah.
sensitivities.
Yeah.
Because
Emotional. I mean, if the world had more emotional capacity, I don't know if we'd have war. I really don't think we'd have war. I don't think we'd have any form of disharmony. And even if we did, I think there'd be a bounce back so quickly, a state of apology so quickly, because we have the capacity to go, I was wrong.
that's true. I must say that's one thing I don't really know who taught me that, mom or my dad, but thank God for that or for them or whoever did that. But one thing that I am drilling into my kids, please do not be afraid to apologize. Even though it makes you
Mm,
feel like a complete idiot and it makes you feel
mm,
this small, suck it up and apologize, especially if you know you're
yeah.
wrong. Like, and
Yeah.
that's one thing that I do very easily, and everyone that knows me is I'm very quick to apologize if I know I was being a true idiot. So
Yeah, it's so
definitely.
interesting that you say that. Whenever I apologize, I feel so good. And then,
Me too.
yeah, and then you get other people who can't apologize because they just don't feel good about admitting that they were wrong. But there's so much strength in an apology, so much.
I don't, I think, okay, obviously it's ego for a lot of people that can't apologize and admit that they were wrong. But to me, if I was very stupid and very mean, which I hope doesn't happen too often, but it's more it's that bit of embarrassment inside of me for like embarrassment towards myself, going like, how could you have done that, Juliet? Like, and that's to me personally, the most difficult thing to jump over, that get over that embarrassment, to actually I go up to you and say, listen, yeah, I'm so sorry. I was a real PP head, so please
Yeah.
forgive me.
Yeah, it's a you thing, right? Because the other person
Yes,
doesn't go, "Oh my God, how embarrassing they've apologized." They actually go, "Oh, that's really cool that you were able to recognize that." And so it goes back to that the fear of other people's opinions, and yet other people are not
mm,
thinking about that. You're the only one thinking about that. And so
that's true.
that's why, cognitive reframing and language and the self-talk that we have is so important, because once again, your brain doesn't know the difference between what is reality and what is not real. And so the way you speak to yourself carries a resonance, and it carries a chemical energy, that floods into your body. And so the way you speak to yourself, when you go, "I'm embarrassed," or "they're going to think," it carries weight. And so you've got to reframe that so you feel good about the apology, because people are not thinking about us as much as we think they're thinking about us. They really
That's true.
aren't.
Very true.
There's something called the spotlight effect in psychology. And here's this thing that prevents us from living our lives to our fullest, is because we care about what other people think. And yet other people are not thinking about us. They really don't care. They're thinking about themselves. And so do you, if it feels wrong inside of you, in your gut, apologize. Apologize. It's wonderful. It's not embarrassing.
It is to apologize. So if you need to apologize to anyone out there, do it. Tell me, so many
Yeah.
women listening now feel like they are too far behind. And I guess that also comes with like age. Like sometimes I'm only 36. I feel like, oh, I'm too old now to achieve certain things. But you are the walking, living example of that's not the case. Like age is just a number. You can achieve anything and everything you put your mind to. Um, but a lot of women believe that they're too far behind to chase a dream or to start a new business. So, from your lived experience, what would you tell that woman doubting herself?
Yeah, I guess I'd ask, too far behind for what? From what? Because when I was considering doing my PhD, I thought to myself, wow, this could take a big chunk of time from my life. And so should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? And then I always go back to this, which is, if you are blessed to live and have time, you're going to age anyway. Time's going to go by anyway. So why don't you use that time to do what it is that you want to do? It's never too late to change. It's never too late to start a business. It's never too late to pursue something different. It isn't. We sometimes surround ourselves with people that have done one thing their entire lives, and because of that, because we are exposed to this environment, we think that that's the norm. But if you expose yourself to a different environment, you'll find that people are shifting and changing all the time. If you look at the average age of a founder or a successful entrepreneur, they're starting in their 40s. Like, gone are the days where, we thought that things only happen in your 20s. We just have exposure to so much these days. And life can be short, but life can also be really long. And if life is long for you, then best you do the things that you want to do. One of the things that comes out in studies when they interview people that are really old is they ask them, what's one of the biggest regrets you have? And it's often one of two things. They feel like they wish they'd spent more time with their family as opposed to focusing on making money and being at work. And the other is not caring what other people think. Because the only thing that stops us from doing what we really want to do is the fear of other people's opinions, which is called, I think, FUPA, fear of other people's opinions. And I'm like, YOLO, you only live once.
That's true. YOLO, you only live once. And that is true. And I'm thinking of it now, like I'm already at a point where it's stupid actually, but I'm thinking like, okay, I love being a Pilates teacher, but can I see myself doing this at 50, 55 years old, traveling to clients' houses, traveling to hotels, like teaching? Yes, 50 is very young, but I would like something where I'm not a stay at home, because a stay at home, I don't want to stay at home because I think that will drive me insane as well. But I want something a little bit more like constant. I don't know how to explain, like a constant income stream almost.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and now I'm like, I'm 36, like, should I do it now or should I wait till I'm 50 maybe and only start it then? And then I go like, because I've got so much on my plate already at the moment and I'm feeling super like my mental capacity is not there. But then I also shift gears a bit and go, okay, if I do start it now, by the time I am 50, this new business will already be 14 years old. So, and it's not like I have to start from scratch. It's already an established thing. So, do I, like you said, suck it up and take all the what the world has to give to me and do everything now while I am still living and breathing and healthy? Or do I wait? But waiting, it might be too late. So I'm in that mindset now.
Yeah,
I should
yeah.
just do it. Just do it.
I think the focus should be on not so much on age. I don't believe the focus should ever be on age. The focus should be on feeling. Like tap into your feelings and ask yourself, what is happening right now inside of me? Is there some sort of resistance that's happening? And if you're feeling resistance, lean into that and ask yourself, where's this coming from? And what's the shift that I need to make if I have to make it, you know? Um, there's there's two analogies that I live by and I share with my clients all the time, is that you're not a tree, move if you want to move. And the other one is, if you can't move because circumstances don't afford that at the moment, then grow where you planted. But either way, whatever choice you make it consciously, and always choose growth. Doesn't matter what you're doing or what you feel stuck in, always choose growth and don't let your focus be on age, because we don't know how much time we have. We can't live for a number, but we can live for a feeling. And what is this feeling saying to me? We can tap into that.
That's very true. Because my mother-in-law, actually, when I mentioned this to her, she said to me, how do you know how you're going to feel when you're 50? So I said to her, I
Yeah, I
don't.
mean,
And she said,
yeah, it's
exactly.
true.
And she's a very wise woman, that one. So, because it's
Yeah.
also thanks to her.
Well,
And I actually
someone good
spoke
to
up to
listen to
someone.
then.
Yes, exactly. Because you spoke about having kids earlier and um, that it's such a conscious decision that you have to make lately. And Cedric and I actually at one point when we got just before we got married, we were fully against having kids because we felt that this world is too overpopulated already and everything going. We just didn't feel like it was fair bringing a child into the world the way it is. And
Yeah.
again, my beautiful mother-in-law, she looked at us because she really wants grandchildren. Okay, not like she's got 12 grandkids, by the way. So it's not like she's lacking any grandkids, but she wanted one from her son and new daughter-in-law or future daughter-in-law. And she turned to us and she said, you guys, you want you want the world to change, and you think by not bringing a child into the world that's going to make. She says, who says your child that you bring into the world is not going to be the one to implement the change of the world that the world needs? And we
Mm,
were both like,
yeah.
mind blown. We were like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And what do you know?
Mhm.
Just after the wedding, we gave a year after the wedding, we gave a grandson. So,
Beautiful.
but it's 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 literally just a mind shift change that makes such a big difference, and just
Yeah.
looking at the world from a different perspective. Um, and yes, that's very exciting. So tell me, your favorite breath exercise when feeling overwhelmed.
My favorite breath exercise, there's so many, but the one that I turn to most really is the most simplest one, and it's just called breath awareness. And it is what it says it is, which is becoming aware of your breath. And so Like right now, the breath is the one thing we do both consciously and we can do unconsciously, or we do it unconsciously rather, but we can also do it consciously. And so right now, as I'm speaking to you, even though I'm talking, I've also become aware of my breath state. And the moment I become aware of my breath state, I start feeling calmer because I actively want to start slowing my speech down and become more calmer and more collected. And so if you are feeling overwhelmed in any way, it's really becoming aware of your breath. So you become aware of your inhale going through your nose, and you become aware of your exhale leaving your nose. And you just do a few rounds of that, and you'll find that your nervous system will completely calm down. It's a really beautiful, simple exercise. It's a no-brainer. You don't need to have any form of certification or degree to do that. It really is as simple as that, just becoming aware of your breath.
Bring yourself to the here and the now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes a big difference. So I ask all my guests, any 3 timeless tips you want to leave for the listeners?
I'm not going to leave you with any tips, but I am going to leave you with this, which is you can't change your destination in a moment, but you can change your direction in a moment. So if you want to be elsewhere, really, it is as simple as changing your direction. So shift your mind and do what it is that you want to do. Shift your direction. And it's difficult, right? Because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Yeah. But it's sometimes the focus is way too much on the destination. And what is going to take you to the destination is your change of direction. So change your direction and you'll get to the destination eventually. But don't focus on the destination. Don't focus on being 55 years old. Focus on the direction you want to change today.
Yes, it's what's that other saying? It's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Mm.
And yes,
Yeah.
I need to remind myself about that one very, very regular. And it's we lose so much time and so much energy by focusing on the destination. And
Yeah.
we miss out on all these tiny bubbles of joy and happiness that's happening in the moment and in the now. And before we know it, that bubble has popped and we missed it. So my sister said to me the other day, she said, just if you can be 1% better every day, she said that's her focus. I just want to be 1% better than yesterday, then I'm happy.
Yeah. That 1% compounds.
Are you a sunset or sunrise person?
I love both. A sunset. Yeah. But if I had to choose, a sunset. But
Okay.
this is as cheesy as it gets. I have never met a sunset that I didn't like. Never.
Mhm. So if you can go on a sunset walk, a walk and talk with anyone, dead or alive, who will it be?
Hmm. I think it would be a sunset walk definitely here in Cape Town. It would be on the promenade because the sunsets here are so beautiful. And it would be with Nelson Mandela. And the reason I say Madiba is because I am consistently floored and in awe of this human being that spent decades in a tiny little cell, but in his mind, he was so free and so compassionate and so loving, so considered. I would love to know where exactly his mental fitness came from in the moments that were the darkest for him. Because when I haven't been to Robben Island yet, and it's on my bucket list. When I see the space that he lived in for so many years, what a man to have come out of that with the degree of love and compassion and celebration that he did. And so when I think about mental fitness, Madiba for me is the ultimate hero of that. It was his mind that got him through all of that. And I would love to tap into the little nuances of the highs and lows of that through the time that he was in prison. So he would be my person.
We can't end on a higher note than that. Zuraida, you are a ray of sunshine. You are a voice of, like, the amount of truth or knowledge bombs that you drop for us in this episode is just, you've left me speechless. And just keep, please, sharing your beautiful wisdom and your energy and your positivity, and just stay exactly who you are. And thank you so much for everything that you do for everyone out there. And yes, yep, we love you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and the work that you are doing, which I know is not always easy, because it's hard to show up in these spaces and to give of yourself and your energy and time. So thank you, and thanks for choosing to have me on your podcast. I appreciate that.